Chase Claypool is a Chicago Bear. William Jackson is finally a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's talk about all the happenings on trade deadline day. All right, welcome to Steeler Country. I am Tony Serino. Today on the show, we are going over what just happened as the trade deadline expired at 4 o'clock today. I'm recording this on Tuesday, November the 1st? Yeah, it's the 1st. And the Steelers have made not one, two trades today. Turns out, are the Steelers going to be buyers at the trade deadline? Are they going to be sellers at the trade deadline? Are they going to do nothing? Well, what about both? What if they were both buyers and sellers? And that's exactly what happened today. You know, Aditi, again, I'm gonna just butcher her last name. Aditi Kinkumbawala said on the Andrew Filipponi show a couple weeks ago that this is not your father's Steelers. Right? Don't just because the Steelers have always done it one way, don't expect that this iteration of the Steelers is going to be the same. And that has turned out to be true throughout Omar Khan's tenure as general manager. Generally speaking, when it came to extensions for players, that would usually happen closer to training camp. We saw hold-ins and whatnot. With Minkah Fitzpatrick, it got done very early on in the process. And even with Deontay, there was, a week-long hold-in with him before that deal got done as well. And now here we are at the trade deadline where the Steelers are, generally speaking, pretty quiet. The trades that they've usually made in the past have come at the end of training camp when it's, the end of roster building season. The Joe Schoberts of the world, right? There was that midseason trade for the tight end they got from Seattle, whose name is going to escape me now. They traded a 5th-round pick for him. I wasn't a huge fan. I mean, to kill a Witherspoon a year ago, right? These are trades that happen usually at the end of training camp. But on deadline day, midseason, the Steelers are not usually looking to add a whole bunch of talent. And certainly, when was the last time the Steelers went into this period of the season as sellers, right? Thinking, hey, let's just get value for what we have because we're entering into some sort of rebuild, retooling, or whatever you want to call it. Steelers did a little bit of both today. They were both buyers and they were sellers. Let's talk about the selling first because that is the biggest news of the day. Chase Claypool. The rumors had been that, by the way, and if I'm distracted a little bit on today's show, I have to apologize. I want to do this show today, but my soccer team is playing right now in Champions League. You'll see it. You can see the reflection of it right there. So if I get a little distracted today, I apologize. Chase Claypool had been, the rumor had been that Claypool could be on the market, or at least teams felt like there was a possibility he could get traded at some point this year. We had heard that from Jeremy Fowler a couple weeks ago. And Fowler, you'll remember, he works for ESPN. He used to be the beat reporter for ESPN when it came to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was pre-Brooke Pryor, right? He got promoted within ESPN to become a national NFL reporter, but he was prior to the Steelers beat reporter. So he has sources within the Steelers, no doubt about it. And he had reported, hey, teams feel like Chase Claypool could get moved this year. And here we are on the deadline day. Credit to Jeremy Fowler, who had it first. Now, he said this is certainly a possibility. I poo-pooed it. A lot of people around the Steelers media poo-pooed this idea. Come on, the Steelers aren't trading Chase Claypool, especially not now. You could see them trading him back at the draft, like they traded Martavis Bryant. You could see them trading him in next year's draft, given that Claypool will be going into a contract year. But to trade him now, to trade him during the season, is just un-Steeler-like because it's the old seller's mentality. Are the Steelers giving up on the season? Is this kind of an admission of, hey, we're kind of out of this thing? I think it's a little of both. I don't necessarily believe that the Steelers believe they're out of it entirely. I just think that they know that this is max value they could get from a 2nd-round pick, which is what the Steelers got from the Chicago Bears, is probably the maximum value you would have expected a team to give up for him. I mean, to put this in context, what a 2nd-round pick represents for Chase Claypool, they got more. They're going to get more back for Claypool than it took to acquire him in the first place. I mean, he was taken with the 60th pick in the draft that year. I'll go back. He was taken in that was a 2018 draft, 2017, 2018. No, it's gonna be 2018 because 2017 draft was the Terrell Edmonds pick. So is the 2019 draft. Nope, 2020 draft. What am I doing? 49th pick. And they will likely get more than the 49th pick back from the Chicago Bears. I mean, the Chicago Bears right now, I believe, have the 12th pick in the draft, which would be like the 44th pick in the upcoming draft. And that, and again, that just assumes that we kind of have a baseline of the Bears stay where they are. That Bears team doesn't exactly look great. And I got to tell you, I don't know that Chase Claypool makes them a whole lot better. Let's be quite honest. So the Steelers getting a second-round pick is huge. But we're talking about a team that's going to go into the 2023 offseason with a ton of needs, the Steelers are. Wide receiver being one of them now, certainly. But with the amount of capital that you need as a team who's going to be coming off of what are the Steelers going to be this year? 4-win team, 5-win team, 6-win team, whatever it is. They're going to need to acquire talent in the offseason. And they will likely have 3 picks in the top 45 of next year's draft if things go. That gives them ammunition to do whatever they want to do. Trade up, trade down, stay put and just acquire 3 essentially first-ish round talents. And in giving up Claypool at this point, I know there's going to be some Steeler fans that are disappointed. Felt like, hey, Claypool and everything he represented as a 6'4" wide receiver, like these guys don't grow on trees, right? You probably wanted to get to extend the life here and figure out what you had in Claypool before you got rid of him. I mean, my argument would be, I think the Steelers, they did everything they could to give Chase Claypool a chance to be the player they drafted him to be. Meaning that, look, when you take a 6'4" receiver who runs, the 4.4 type 40 that Claypool did, you expect someone who's going to be a dominant outside force in this league. They gave him 2 years to do that. He showed very few signs, a little bit in his rookie year, but really regressed in his second year. And so through 2 years, you've seen very few glimpses that he could ever be the kind of dominant outside receiver that his body type would tell you he should be. And then they had the idea, and I thought it was a good one, is one I brought up in the offseason. Move this guy to slot, let him go up against some more advantageous size mismatches where I never felt like he had the mentality of a big-bodied receiver, of a bully mentality receiver. I never felt like he was that guy, especially against some of the more physical corners in the league. But put him up against slot corners, put him in that matchup, and let's see how he does there. And I think through 8 games thus far for the Steelers, I don't think anyone would sit here today and tell you that Chase Claypool has been a massive success in that. Now, I also don't believe that he's been put in a great situation. I mean, I think that this offense, just in general, is not exactly putting their players in the best situations, but that's neither here nor there. Right? I mean, given what we've seen from Claypool for 2.5 seasons, I just don't feel like the Steelers. I don't feel like there was more meat on that bone as far as how the Steelers were developing him. Potentially, he goes out to Chicago and he balls out, and he turns into the kind of player the Steelers drafted him to be. Cool. I mean, if that ends up being the case, that's fine. And even if you're the Steelers, I don't think you're disappointed to get this back. This is more than the Steelers got back for Antonio Brown and more than they got back for Martavis Bryant, for a player that is very clearly less talented than both of those players. I mean, Chase Claypool never had a season like Martavis Bryant had in Pittsburgh, right? Chase Claypool never had seasons even close to what Antonio Brown was doing. Now, both those guys, Martavis and Antonio Brown, had off-the-field issues. But Claypool, by all reports in Pittsburgh now, was kind of a locker room problem. And whether that's kind of an off-the-field distraction type of problem like Martavis was with all the suspensions and whatnot, and AB and all the special treatment that he needed to get, or it was just Claypool, going back to that interview he did in the offseason, right, where he's like, I'm a number 1 guy. I'm the top 3 guy in the league. And the Steelers have this guy in George Pickens. They're like, well, Pickens is already better than you, kid. So, like, we're going to try it out in the slot. At the end of the day, like, the Steelers are getting more back than they got from Martavis and they got for AB, for a guy who didn't work out here. And by the reports that are coming out now, was at least a distraction in that he wasn't self-aware of where he was in his career. This is a guy who didn't work out at outside receiver and needed to make himself work as a slot receiver. That didn't work either. So then if he's causing, let's not call him a locker room problem. Let's say that it's a nuisance of the idea of like, hey, man, I want to play on the outside again. Like, you got to put me, that kind of thing. And the Steelers like, no, we're going with Pickens. So see ya. Like, I think you can understand why Tomlin, why Khan felt like, let's just get what we can get for this kid, especially if it's a second-round pick. Boy, the fact that they got a second-round pick. I mean, you're talking about now the Steelers can go into next offseason 3 picks in the top 45. I mean, you're talking about the Steelers can go out in the next draft and acquire themselves a top offensive lineman, 2 if they want to. 2 of the top 45 offensive linemen in the draft. And then add what? A corner if they want to, another wide receiver if they want to, a D lineman if they want to, a linebacker if they want to in these top 45 picks. They could use, let's say that, I know I hate people. I hate to continue down this like quarterback thing, but I mean, let's imagine a world where Kenny Pickett at the end of the day, the Steelers determined by the end of the year, it's just not going to work with Kenny. And the Steelers are also now in a situation with 3 picks in the top 45. They have some ammunition to go up a little bit if they need to. If they get enamored with one of those top 3 this year, and that'll be Bryce Young from Alabama, C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, or Will Levis from Kentucky. Those are right now the consensus top 3 quarterbacks in the upcoming class. The Steelers get enamored with any of those guys, and they need to move up a little bit. Now, they now have the ammunition without having to give away further capital in further years to go up and make that move if they so desire. But regardless, I mean, the Steelers going into next season with real needs. I mean, this is not a team right now who I think anyone feels like is loaded. They've got some quality skill position talent in guys like Deontay Pickens and Freiermuth. But they've got offensive line needs. They've got defensive line needs. They've got linebacker needs. They've got cornerback needs. And at safety, Terrell Edmunds signed a 1-year deal. He'll be gone. They'll need to put someone alongside Minkah Fitzpatrick in the long term. And so that's why, again, it goes back to this idea that the Claypool thing didn't work out. He was a nice to have, not a necessity. This is a guy who failed on the outside and was on his way to failing in the slot as well. And they upgraded the acquisition cost, meaning that they got more back for him in trading him. They used him for 2.5 years. They tried it out, and then they were able to get more back. It's the old, like, if you had bought a car pre-pandemic and then you sold it during the pandemic, right? During all the chip shortage stuff, you got the utility of the car, and then you probably got more back than you paid for it at the end of the day. It's a great deal. No one's going to sit there and tell you, boy, I can't believe you sold that car. No, it was a good trade. I got to use it a little bit, and the day didn't really need it. So traded it back in, got more than it was worth. We got more than I paid for it. It's a good deal. It's a good deal all around. I want to see what you guys are saying. I want to go to the comments real quick. All right, let's see. Mikra says, how long until Chase tweets bad loss, but Packers are going to get clapped next week? I think that's another interesting part of this is the whole idea of how this trade went down. So the reports have come in now. I think Josina Anderson has done the best reporting on this, saying that, look, these offers had come in for the last couple days and weeks. But it was this morning that things really heated up when the Bears submitted an offer, got rejected, and felt like, hey, there might be another team involved in this. And so they felt like they needed to up their offer, and they did, to a second-round pick. And that's when the Steelers said, all right, let's do it, second-round pick. I have to imagine that the Bears felt like that other team they were bidding against was the Packers. And do I think that I joked about it earlier, right? Like, Omar Khan on the phone with the Bears saying, hey, sorry, I got the Packers on the other line. Let me call you back and we'll work this. It's like, it's the Packers on the other line. Oh, we'll do anything. I do think that played somewhat into it. Sure. I mean, as far as like the Chase Claypool off the field stuff, the TikTok stuff and all of that, and again, I was never too bothered with that stuff from either Juju or Claypool, right? Like the idea that they get on TikTok, they make the dances and everything. I mean, that's nothing things. It's about, how are they interacting with teammates, right? The nuisance part of when Josina Anderson is reporting that, Chase wanted to be a number 1 guy as a number 3 in the offense. And that was where the discord came from. See, that to me is real discord in the locker room, right? Oh my goodness. They just hit the post. Sorry. Soccer game again going on over here. See, soccer game right there. Hit the crossbar. Could have had a winner. Unbelievable. Anyway, I think that to me is more of the nuisance or more of the reason to, you have to be rid of a guy. Is if a guy's going to be a nuisance in the locker room, not that he's like, he tweeted like the Chiefs are going to get clapped next week. Who cares about that stuff? Who cares? All right. Julia says, can't believe we got a second for Claypool and some help this season at corner. We'll talk about the corner move. Good moves by King Khan. Now Pickens gets the ball more too. Indeed. I mean, there is kind of a trickle-down effect here in the offense. This will no longer mean 2 wide receiver sets with Deontay and Claypool. You'll probably see more Pickens. You'll probably see more Miles Boykin. Miles Boykin, another player, another winner today. Steven Sims, I think, is a big winner. Gunnar Olszewski, a big winner. We call him penalties today, ref? Guess not. So I think 2 guys who are big winners today. George Pickens is going to get more reps, certainly. Steven Sims likely going to get more reps out of the slot. I liked what he did as kind of an open field runner. I said this going back to preseason. Not sure he's a great route runner as far as understanding how to get himself open as a slot receiver, but certainly ball in his hands. You love what Steven Sims brings to the table. Gunnar, probably a more sly route runner, but I think the Steelers have kind of lost trust in him over time, given his problems as a ball handler. So, all right, let's see what else we got here. We got Mika again says the trade actually makes sense for the Bears. Fields has a top 5 in the NFL in percentage of targets on go routes, and Chase is top 8 in NFL receivers percentage being go routes. Yeah, I mean, if they want to run Chase Claypool on go routes if they want to line him up as an outside receiver and just have him run go routes and try to moss defenders, again, we know how that's going to play out. I mean, it makes sense for the Bears. It's one of those things where it's it makes sense. It makes sense in theory, but in practice, we know we've seen this. I mean, we've seen Chase Claypool in these moments where he needs to go up against a corner he should be able to beat physically. He should be able to go up there and get the ball. I mean, I don't want to. Do I still have the picture? Oh, I do. Oh, I still have it. Yeah. I mean, they want to run him out there, and once again, that is I have all these banners, the StreamYard thing. That is a 5'8" safety going up and getting a hand on the ball and tipping it away from Claypool at the catch point. This play, again, as I said at the time, this was an interception. This is a ball that hits Chase Claypool in the hands against a 5'8" safety. Claypool cannot bring it down. Not only can he not bring it down, the ball gets tipped away from him and tipped over to that safety over there, Jordan Whitehead. Good luck. Good luck, Chicago Bears. All right, how do I get rid of this now? Too old for this stuff. Let's see. What else we got here? Big guy, run straight line many times, yeah. I thought the Bears getting rid of Roquan yesterday made a lot of sense because they're acquiring a second-round pick. Roquan didn't want to sign there. Whoever is acquiring him is going to have to pay big money. And so, with the Ravens, it likely being a rental there, I thought that was actually a good move for the Bears. This one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, quite honestly. I get what you're saying as far as, hey, this is what their offense does. They want to run goal balls, and this is what Chase Claypool should be good at. But, again, it's how long does it take for us to figure out who a player is, right? And how long, do we think that Chase Claypool could still grow into that kind of dominant outside threat? Jessica says, I think we all had this a chance when Pickens started making plays. It's the better Pickens played, the more Claypool became expendable. I mean, you knew that, but you knew this right off the top. I mean, this was one of those. What did Martavis tweet? That Sammy Coates replacement, not mine. Take that how you want it on back, like that. Remember that tweet? I mean, Pickens was picked right away and was Claypool's replacement. Because remember, day one of camp, Chase Claypool was in the slot. George Pickens was on the outside. So this was always hey, we got Pickens now. This is your last chance, Chase. You're going in the slot. You're not an outside receiver to us anymore. All right, we'll continue. Appreciate everybody in chat today. Again, we're going to do a whole Q&A. I'll put the thing up here because we will do a whole Q&A at the end of the show. But I do want to talk about the other trade the Steelers made today because, yeah, they were sellers. They traded away Chase Claypool. Certainly a move that doesn't make them better. I don't think this makes them better offensively, but it was kind of the least. It was the most they could trade without getting a whole lot worse. If you trade away another offensive asset, right? You trade away Deontay right now. That makes you discernibly worse offensively. Right? And if you traded away Freiermuth or any of the other big pieces, let's not talk about Najee right now. Okay, we won't go there. But you see what I'm saying? He was clearly a valuable asset. They got a second round pick for him. but he doesn't necessarily change the fortunes all that much. They're not better without him, but they're certainly not a whole lot worse without him. They made another move today, the Steelers did, Omar Khan did, to get William Jackson III, cornerback from the Washington Commanders, in a late round pick swap. So here's how this works. The Steelers gave away a 6th round pick and get back from the Commanders a 7th round pick. And this is all in 2025. So this is not in next year's draft, not in the draft after that, but the draft after that, right? So this is like 3 years from now, we're swapping picks. You basically can't trade less than this. They essentially moved down from the 6th round to the 7th round 3 years from now. They gave up nothing to get William Jackson. The only thing they're giving up is salary. And this is where I haven't seen a whole bunch of reporting on this. I guess I should check real quick because maybe this is going to come out as I'm recording. And if it does come out as I'm recording, as far as the salary information here, are the Commanders eating any of the salary? Are the Steelers taking on all of what he's owed in 22 or the rest of what he's owed in 22? Holy cow, cannot believe they missed. If anyone's watching Tottenham and Marseille, there's about 3 minutes left. Tottenham needs to tie. Spurs need to tie in order to advance. And Marseille had a sitter and missed it. Anyway. So I don't know how much they're eating of his cap. That's one like semi-interesting part of this. I don't think it's that big a deal. I think he has $2.5, maybe $3 million left when you count in the roster bonuses and the per game bonuses. Like the Steelers are going to eat $2 or $3 million in cap this year. I don't know that part of this deal even matters all that much, right? You could get him for like vet minimum or whatnot, I guess, and have them eat the rest and save yourself a couple $1 million and have that roll over to next season. But like the Steelers have like $35 million in cap space next season, and they have Omar Khan as their general manager. We know that Omar Khan is the king of brokering salary cap or of creating salary cap space. That literally was his job the entire time Kevin Colbert was general manager. So I'm not really concerned all about that, but I'm interested to see if in fact they do eat any of that salary, the Commanders. But to go back to William Jackson. So William Jackson comes in as a cornerback from Washington, William Jackson has a long history with the Steelers. Now he's never played for the Steelers before, but he should have. If you'll remember back in 2016, the Steelers were all in on taking a corner in that class. This is at a time when this team was going through like the Antoine Blakes of the world. William Gay was on his second stint as a Steeler and playing well, but I mean, outside of him, the Steelers just were going through Ross Cockrell came through town back then. This was like a very bad time in Steelers secondary history. This is post Ike, but pre Joe Hayden, pre Steven Nelson, pre the modern corners of the Steelers. So they were all in 2016 on a corner, and that they were all in on a corner named William Jackson III in that draft. They were all, this is the Steelers made no secret in this draft, 2016, who they wanted. They wanted William Jackson III. It was a report of every Steelers site knew it. Everyone knew it, including the Cincinnati Bengals, who also coveted William Jackson III and decided to move up. They moved up right ahead of the Steelers and took William Jackson III, one pick before the Steelers picked. And so the Steelers end up settling for trivia. Anyone know? Anyone know who they settled for? Yeah, you know. I have his jersey. Artie Burns. So the Steelers could have had William Jackson, but they end up with Artie Burns. William Jackson, I believe, was in free agency 2 seasons ago. Got signed by Washington to a big deal. I think it was a 4-year, $40-something million deal. So he ended up getting, relatively paid from Washington a couple years back. I thought the Steelers could be in on him at that point, but I believe that was during an offseason. I think that might have been the COVID year, actually, when the Steelers didn't have a whole lot of cap space back then and couldn't make that deal. But the Steelers have always coveted William Jackson. And I understand he's 30 years old. He's in I think year 6 or 7. He was like a 23, 24-year-old as a draft pick. So he came out as an old player. Much like Kenny Pickett did. This game needs to end. I apologize for being distracted today. Like I said, got to watch this game. My team's in Champions League. It's elimination day, but I did want to do this podcast today, so I apologize for being a little distracted throughout the show. But yeah, the Steelers have always coveted William Jackson. He is 30, so he's a little up there in age, But this is a very much a low risk, high reward situation. The Steelers, as I said, the Steelers have always loved this guy. They felt like they could, he could be a number one for them going all the way back. He is 30, so he's a little older, but they're going to bring him in at a time once again in their history where, look, they need another outside corner. Ahkello Witherspoon, it ain't working out. Like for all Ahkello did last year for this team, and he was great last year in relief of Joe Hayden and of Cam Sutton at times. As the Steelers in the back half of last season had all these problems at corner. Ahkello came in, was a solid player, put up numbers that would have made him a number one corner in any, by any register. He only did it for 6 games, though. He led the team in interceptions by the end of the year. Ahkello was great. He has not been that player this season. Levi Wallace is an interesting piece, but we all know we've all seen the limitations of Levi Wallace. Great player with his eyes on the quarterback. Terrible player when he's trying to run stride for stride with the guy, right? Instinctual player and all of that, but the problem is when you want him in one-on-one situations, it's a no bueno situation. So Jackson comes in right now, and I don't know that he's exactly CB1 coming in, but he's certainly CB2, and he's no lower than CB3. And you could potentially see him come in when potentially you could see Cam Sutton and Levi Wallace on the outside when Levi's healthy again, and then Cam goes in the slot, and it's William Jackson first off the bench in those nickel and dime situations. But the Steelers are betting here. The bet here is that we are pick swapping 3 years from now, and yeah, we're gonna have to eat a bit of salary. We think we might have got our number one. If this works out and the Steelers can get their number one corner for I don't know how long. Again, I don't know how much longer William Jackson has left as a top-ish corner. But if they can get, if William Jackson is good for a year, 2 years, 3 years, that's a hell of a get for paying nothing. Because if he works out, I think his salary next year is $12, $13 million. It's nothing for a number one corner. It's nothing. You're talking about this team wants to go out in the offseason next year and, hey, they need to get a number one guy. Well, the corner class next year isn't great. So the idea that the Steelers are going to go out there and get a Sauce Gardner in next year's class, I don't know that guy exists. Now, obviously, these things change and are fluid throughout the pre-draft process and all that. Tells you that could change between now and April. But as we sit here today, I don't know that there really isn't a Sauce Gardner in next year's class. So if you're thinking the Steelers are going to have a top 5 pick, they can go get their number one guy. Maybe not. But they certainly should take a chance because it's a huge need for this team a year from now. So I do really like this pickup because it's so low risk. Again, what are they giving up? They give up nothing. A pick swap 3 years from now. They give up a little bit of salary this year for a player that we've known that they have desired for a long time at a position of real need. And this is a guy who, if he works out, he could end up being CB1 or at least CB2, like a solid CB2 for this team for a couple years. Remember, Cam Sutton is in a contract here. He could be gone after this year, and he looks good enough with what he's the lone bright spot on that defense on Sunday. Really been the lone bright spot, in a couple games this year. If Sutton walks in the offseason, you end up with I'm assuming Ahkello's gone after this year, although maybe Ahkello's on a 2-year deal. I don't think he is, though. You're potentially going into next season with Levi Wallace and William Jackson. But you could have gone into next season with Levi Wallace and nothing. Right. So I think Omar Khan did great work today. Hold on one second. Let me just check this goal real quick. Game over. All right, we can turn that off. Tottenham wins. Big win in Champions League. Let's go. Come on, you Spurs. All right, let's get to what you guys think. I think Omar Khan did great work today. I think, I'm not used to this, right? I'm not used to trade deadline day is a big day for the Steelers. Oh, the Steelers are going to make some moves today. But it is what is exciting about this team right now, which is nothing on the field. Nothing on the field is exciting, but off the field, we're entering into uncharted territory. Steelers are going to have potentially a top 10 pick, but they also have a front office that we've never seen operate before. This is not Kevin Colbert. This is not Kevin Colbert's MO. And clearly Omar Khan has very different ideas about how to roster build, as does Andy Weidel, the new pro player manager. So this is fun. All right, let's get back to more of your comments here. This is such a steal. Chase couldn't catch, block, or run the right routes enough to be a slot. Or he couldn't run enough. He couldn't run enough routes to be a slot. He doesn't stack corners, and 50-50 balls become 20-80, and we got a second. Amazing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Yeah, I guess there is a plus to that because you talk about like run right enough routes, right? So it's like I'm assuming what you're saying there. He didn't run the right routes, right? Meaning that it did feel like at times that there were too many times in Canada's offense where there's two guys in the same spot too often. And I look, none of us like Matt Canada, and Matt Canada's offense is not exactly well designed. But like it's not, I mean, this is like route design 101, which is don't run two guys to the same spot. So yeah, I mean, was Chase potentially like not getting to his right depth or whatnot? You could certainly, I mean, so in that, I guess in that way you could say like Steven Sims actually could be an upgrade, or Gunner could be an upgrade in that way. But then at the same time, like if that's really been happening for like the last 6 weeks, why would they play him? If you have a guy who's running routes badly enough that it is like cutting off parts of the field because you're essentially, by not running your route correctly, you're taking yourself out of the play and another receiver out of the play because you create spacing issues on offense. If that's the case, I mean, he would have been benched. So I'm actually gonna disagree with my own point and say there's no way that was the case because we're 8 weeks into the year. How the hell is that guy still playing? Put Gunner in, even if he fumbles. But the rest of it here, like not a great blocker, check. Doesn't stack corners. Correct. 50-50 balls become they become 0-100. 20-80 is generous. They become 0-100. And yeah, they got a second. I mean, they got more back for him than they paid. He was taken with pick 45. This Bears pick is going to end up being top 15, guaranteed. Guaranteed. I just wonder how upset Chase is when he found out the Packers offered a second, but the Steelers sent him to Chicago instead. Well, unfortunately for Chase, the Bears are going to be worse. So sorry about you. Who replaces Chase? I guess Sims. Yeah, I think Sims or Gunner. Sims or Gunner in the slot. And then remember, it's not like Chase was only playing in the slot. He was playing outside as well. Pickens will get more reps in those spots where it used to be Chase playing on the outside with Deontay, right? 2 wide receiver sets, Deontay and Chase on the field at the same time. But you also, I think, see more Boykin as well. I think Boykin's a big winner out of this one. And so Tanner says previous regime would have a very hard time resisting Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter Jr., for those of you who don't know, is the cornerback from Penn State who is Joey Porter, the Joey Porter we know, the outside linebacker, the great edge rusher for the Steelers for so many years, and then the outside linebacker coach for a little while here under Tomlin's regime. So Joey Porter Jr. is thought of right now. I guess maybe I don't want to waste time pulling this up. Like, I don't know. I don't think Joey Porter Jr. is thought of as a first round pick. I suppose we can let me just pull up the Draft Network. We'll just go off theirs. The Draft Network. We'll pull up their big board and see where they have him as far as the top prospects. So they have their TDN 100 list. Let's see where Joey Porter is on the 25. So borderline first round prospect for Joey Porter Jr. So back to Tanner's comment here. He says, Con and Weidl might not draft anyone under 300 pounds for the first few picks. Top 45 pick. Yes, you have 3 top 45 and you just go big boy, big boy, big boy. The trenches. You know who would love that? My co-host on AFC North Talk, Sonny, who is he's a Ravens fan, but he's a bigger fan of playing the trenches. I mean, this is a guy who truly loves offensive line and defensive line play. And what sucks for Sonny is that the Ravens haven't had a good pass rusher in so long. I mean, just in forever. Really since what? Terrell Suggs? I don't know that you're going to see them not draft anyone under 300 pounds for the first few picks, though. I do think wide receivers getting drafted, but maybe not in the top 45. They might be that might be their third round pick next year. I could see that. Third round pick, you go wide receiver. Because you now have Deontay under contract. for 2 years beyond this year. So that's not a need to replace Deontay. Pickens is under contract for 3 more years. So that's not a need. So you need to draft another slot guy. You don't need to necessarily get a slot guy in the first 2 rounds unless you really, really love them. But yeah, Mayaka. Okay, so earlier we talked about like why did the Bears do this, and he's saying just seeing. So Mayaka said like the reason for the Bears to do this is that Fields loves to throw the goal ball. That's the only thing that Claypool does right now. So it made sense for them. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I just think I think from it does though speak to the poor. It's kind of it's like poor player scouting on the Bears part, right? You got 2.5. You got so much tape on what Claypool can do as that kind of receiver. Even if yes, he is the prototype of the kind of player who should be good on the outside. Like, are you just not turning on the tape to see like, well, what does he do? Maybe. Although it's the old Toby from Arrested Development, that meme. Like why not us? Like maybe it's us. That's every coaching staff. Every coaching staff looks at a player and goes like, no, I can fix him. I can fix him. And I'm sure that's what the Bears are saying right now about Chase Claypool, right? They're like, sure, the Steelers couldn't make him work as an outside receiver, but maybe we can. And especially that's true if multiple teams are offering seconds. Can we do like a timeshare thing? We get multiple seconds and you guys can split them. Let's see. Pibbles here says, I feel like the Bears could have just given us Roquan for Chase in a 6th, so they keep their own 2nd. Maybe Khan didn't want to play Smith, didn't want to pay Smith. Maybe, but that's a huge upgrade either way. Yeah, I mean, look, the problem here with paying a player is that your value goes down. I mean, it is and it isn't a fixed pie scenario because salary cap is malleable, meaning that we can move money. But at the end of the day, there is a fixed pie, which is there is a salary cap. You cannot spend more than this amount. Now you can massage where the money is and what year you spend it, and so that's why I'm saying it's not totally fixed pie. But if you imagine, right, I'm going to spend, X% of my cap on this player. He then has to represent X times value of another guy at the same position. Does Roquan Smith, by making $20 million a year, represent, what would it be? Like 20 times value over what you could get by just starting Mark Robinson next year? That's why, that's why, look, whoever, the team that traded for Roquan doesn't even want to pay him. Like, I'm not convinced that the Ravens are, ready to, write that check for $20 million for Roquan. As much as it would be hilarious if they paid Roquan Smith before paying Lamar. 10 out of 10 hilarity on AFC North talk. But I don't think that's the case. I think so as far as the Steelers getting Roquan, I always said like it would be a really interesting thing, especially for this season. For what Tomlin wanted this season to be, right? Imagine TJ doesn't get hurt. So like this defense could legitimately be a top 3 unit. I always said in the offseason, like, I know you want to make Devin Bush work, and hey, we got Miles Jack and it's going to help Devin and all that. It's like, just go all, if you want to believe this offense or this defense is going to just ride it out, just go all in and get Roquan, get Roquan, franchise him next year. And then like, let's just ride out this defense for as good as it could possibly be and try this theory until it doesn't work. All right. Joe here says, oh, look, speaking of Devin Bush, now let's get rid of Bush. You just got to wait at, how many games have they played so far? 8, and it's 17 game season. So you got 9 more games of Devin Bush. They're not going to re-sign him. Devin Bush is actually, though, look, Devin Bush isn't having a bad year. Now, there's a lot of problems on that defense. Devin Bush wouldn't be in my top. Where would he make? Of that defense, yeah, he probably would be like my 5th worry right now as far as like players on the team. And then as far as firing Canada, I don't know, man. The rumor was that could happen Thursday. I still don't think it's going to happen. I'm a broken record on this, so you can go to like any other podcast I've done here on the channel if you want my take on firing Canada. I'll give you the TLDR. It's like a move that Tomlin would be admitting how badly he screwed up the post-ban era by firing Canada mid-season, right? he would be essentially benching his quarterback that he spent the whole time saying is my number one and firing the offensive coordinator that he brought in to be like, all right, you're my post-Ben guy. You just can't do it. Can't do it. Maybe it happens. If it's going to happen, supposedly it's going to happen Thursday. Peacock says Tomlin wants to win now. It's good to want things. It's good to want things. I mean, William Jackson is kind of a hedge on this season, like a hedge on the second half of the year. Schedule gets a lot easier in the second half. No doubt about that. No doubt about it. Second half of the schedule is not as difficult as, let's say, that last 4-game stretch the Steelers just played. So there is always that kind of Tomlin pulls a rabbit out of the hat. We've seen it a million times from Tomlin. This just when you're ready to like give the eulogy of like, man, this team is dead and buried. Just like the Undertaker. Oh, he's back. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. I think the offense has far too many problems for that to be the case. And defensively, they're just a roller coaster ride. And like TJ is going to come back and make them better. But yeah, the max that I could see this, even if this team did like reeling off wins, if that gets them to what, like 7 right now? You get to be like 7-10. Steelers haven't had a number one corner in 2 decades. LOL. It's truly sad. I don't know about this. Joe Hayden came here post-prime, but I don't know that I would call Joe Hayden a number 2. Right? Okay, so what is a number one corner? Is a number one corner like, it's got to be on the Darrelle Revis, Stephon Gilmore at his peak? Or can a number one corner just be like a really good corner that you can count on? Does that have to be a shutdown? Does it have to be an island guy? Does it have to be like a top 10 corner? Like how many number one corners exist in the NFL? Are there 32 or are there like 10? Right? Is this the idea to put it in draft terms, right? You always hear this like, I have a first round grade on this player. Now you don't have 32 first round grades. There aren't necessarily 32 guys in every draft who are first round type talents, right? You could potentially have a draft where there are only 15 first round type talents, but you end up taking 32 of them because you have to. Right? So it's the idea here with the number one corner that there are only like 10 of these guys and like truly shut down guys. Fine. Yes, I will agree. As soon as I've had that guy since Rod Woodson. All right, who's the last time they had a truly shut down corner was Rod. Ike was close, but Ike wasn't a playmaker. And so while Ike was really, really, really good, in order to be that true shutdown guy, you got to be able to get your hands on the ball and keep it. And then Hayden got here. And yeah, I mean, I would agree that he was probably on the lower end of CB1, but he wasn't a CB2. He was like, the last days of CB1. And then later in life, he transitioned over to CB2. Amos says there's no way this team wins 9 straight. Nah, there's no way this team wins 9 straight. No, because they can't score 20 points. They can't score 20 points. I mean, this team is it's so difficult for this team to put together drives, and they make it so difficult on themselves. Did you guys see Ben Roethlisberger's podcast yesterday, Footballing? When he's like, at this point with this offense, I just throw the ball down the field. He said, I would throw the ball down the field on first, second, and third. I just, whatever. He said, look, here's how I would design it. I said, if you're going to show me single high, we're going down the field every single play. Like every single play. You're showing me single high, we're going down the field every play. And the way I'm going to design my offense is if you ever want, and once you start to adjust to that, to go to too high, I'm running down the middle. I got every play in my playbook now has someone running down the seam, down the middle of the field. We're just going to attack. Because we can't keep winning. We can't keep playing this way, is what Ben essentially said. It's like the antithesis of how the Steelers actually play. But yeah, there's also some truth to what Cowher was saying. Like, you're ruining Kenny Pickett right now because of everything that you're trying to put on his shoulders, because your offense is basically like, hey, Kenny, it's all you, baby. It's all you, baby. Like Canada's offense isn't doing a good enough job of giving Kenny like easy read of just like, here's what you're going to do. Like, I'm going to, like, when you're in this look, I'm just going to this play is designed to manipulate the safety to give a guy underneath, right? Like, Kenny missed a lot of throws on Sunday on film, certainly, but it wasn't like, it looked, the one that everybody talks about, the one that's the glaring, like, I can't believe Kenny missed that. And I'm right there with it. I can't believe Kenny missed Claypool down the seam on that. I mean, would have been a touchdown. It's a double move play to Deontay. Double move to Deontay. So he sits up. He kind of looks off the safety, like looks at Claypool essentially, who's wide open. Decides nah, and then goes to Deontay. Now, this is what we'll never know. This is why it's still, you can watch the all 22 and be like, man, there was a lot of open guys. But the question is, how is the play taught, right? What is Kenny being told about that play? Is Kenny being told, look off the safety because your only thing you're doing on that play is double move, right? We want this play to go to Deontay in a double move. So at the end of the day, is he doing what he's coached to do, or did he just sit on that route and didn't see Claypool over the middle whatsoever? To go back to Cowher's thing of you're killing this kid. I mean, Kenny's confidence is at an all-time low. He's going back to all the worst habits he had. You think about Kenny when he got into the league, everything was, he was very calm. Everything was just, I know what I'm looking at, and it's bang bang. I mean, it's Groundhog Day, baby. I already know what's going on. I'm just waiting for you to be in the right spot. And it has kind of devolved from that point. We just see this de-evolution. Since the Jets game came in, he was doing the same stuff. Bills game came in, he was doing the same stuff, but it wasn't as good. Bucks game, Dolphins game, yikes. Eagles game, holy shit, outright disaster. Kenny was an outright disaster on Sunday's game against the Eagles. I mean, bad. So, yeah, I mean, but it was always the problem of putting Kenny in that situation. There's always the problem, really, the Jets game is where you're going to choose to put him in. When they have Bills, Bucks, Dolphins, Eagles coming up, that's the stretch you want to start your rookie quarterback in. Interesting. Okay, let's see how this works out. And yeah, by the end of it, you're getting, former coaches yo, you're ruining this kid. This is a disaster. It's, this is one of those, it's not just hindsight's 2020. We all said this going in, man, you couldn't put Kenny against 3 or 4 games on the road and 3 of them against top 5 defenses in the league. Okay. And at the end of it, you're yeah, Kenny, not good so far. Really not good. Really just not good from Kenny. I know people, I know Sunday was kind of a Rorschach test. If you want to believe in Kenny, there are parts of Sunday's game where you go, no, Kenny wasn't that bad. But look, at the end of the day, yeah, there were some moments, and by moments I mean there was 1 or 2 drives where Kenny looked okay, but it was still all the same check down stuff of, if Mason Rudolph had that game against San Francisco a couple years back where he just didn't throw the ball beyond the line of scrimmage. I don't think he completed a pass beyond the line of scrimmage in that San Francisco game. No, he did. It was the one to Juju, I think. It was 1 pass beyond the line of scrimmage. Kenny completed 3 or maybe 4 passes beyond 5 yards in that game on Sunday. Again, if that were Mason Rudolph back there and not Kenny Pickett, we would crush. We did crush Mason back in the day. When Mason was in 2019, we crushed him. He was bad. I just think we need to hold Kenny to the same standard. I understand. We want Kenny to be great. Kenny's a Pitt guy, local hero and all of that. But, let's just call a spade a spade. Kenny's not good so far. Does that mean he's a bust? No. Doesn't mean he's a bust. Right? But and I know people think it's unfair because a lot of Steeler fans are saying this whole hey, should they go out and upgrade at quarterback? And it's oh, well, rookies can get better in year 2 and yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, no one's saying, Kenny's an out and out bust today and Kenny can't get any better. And that's why you have to go and get a quarterback in next year's draft. But the idea here is that the Steelers are in a unique situation. You have an upcoming class of quarterback that is really, really, really good. Way better than last year. No one's going to sit here and tell you that even the most ardent Kenny Pickett defender cannot deny that the prospect that was Kenny Pickett and everything we watched in Pitt is far worse a prospect than what Bryce Young or CJ Stroud represents. I refuse to believe there are people out there who would actually say, no, I would rather have, before you ever saw Kenny Pickett in a Steeler uniform, before you saw him come back against the Seahawks, before you saw any of that stuff, Kenny Pickett at Pitt, there's no way you can tell me that Kenny Pickett's body of work at Pitt made you believe that he's going to be a better NFL quarterback than what Bryce Young or CJ Stroud represent. There's just no way. So that is why, yeah, Kenny has to be on this accelerated timeline because, yeah, I mean, you can end up upgrading at quarterback if you need to. If you're not sure, then you got a chance to just just screw that one up. Let's just whoops. Anyway. Jay says Jackson had 5 interceptions in 6 seasons. Not very impressive for a former first-round pick. Yeah, I mean, this isn't, the Steelers aren't drafting a guy who's been a top corner, right? They're drafting a guy who they liked a lot and think can fit in their system. Remember, Terrell Austin coached this guy back in Cincinnati. Tomlin wanted him a lot. The whole personnel department wanted this kid a lot. Is this going to work out? Is this a guaranteed, like, wow, the Steelers just got their next number one guy? No. But potentially, if they feel like he was a perfect scheme fit back in the day, I mean, what the Steelers are running today, which is probably a little more man concepts than they used to. But at the end of the day, same stuff. Can they make that work, right? Can they turn William Jackson into a solid outside corner for them, potentially a CB1 type? Not a ball hawk, not a Stephon Gilmore, right? Not a Darrell Revis, but just a solid CB1, and Ike Taylor. Jay says they still need to draft a corner. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's, you get William Jackson. If you don't re-sign Cam Sutton in the offseason, then yeah, corner is a massive need. Like, let's say top end here, William Jackson works out. You're probably still drafting a corner unless you re-sign Cam Sutton. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. O-line on all the rounds. Well, the right side of the line is probably not where they need to. Wouldn't say that the right side of the line is where you need to. You paid James Daniels, you're fine there. You paid Chooks, and Chooks has been Chooks gets called for illegal formation. Feel like that should be a pretty easy conversation. Hey Chooks, just make sure you're in line there, dog. Should be a pretty easy conversation. The fact that it's gone on for so many weeks is mind-boggling. But okay, whatever. And then the same thing with being called for illegal man downfield on RPO plays. Like that's a one-time film session, right? Shouldn't that just be? Don't you feel like that should just be a one-time film session? Hey guys, on RPOs we're getting called for going downfield, so let's just make sure that let's just make an emphasis on the point of like let's not get downfield too early in these RPO plays, right? Like that's just that. Okay, yep. And then we're on like week 4 of just illegal man downfield. Same thing with Chooks on the, like, I don't know. I guess Tomlin said they're going to have refs at practice to work on this throughout the bye week. So maybe. Noah says, Tony, were you throwing a parade when Chase got traded? Yeah, I wasn't on Twitter a lot when the trade happened. I wasn't on Twitter. I was too busy taking my victory marathon. Let's go. The thing about Chase Claypool, I actually did fall in love with Chase in that rookie season, but who couldn't? I mean, who didn't? I mean, this guy on the outside was making playoffs. I think he had 8 touchdowns his rookie season. And 8 touchdowns, wasn't it like 6 of them were within 4 weeks or something? And he had an absurd streak there of just bomb touchdown, bomb touchdown, bomb touchdown. He was doing the end around thing. Like, it was peak. Steelers know how to draft. It was, again, he looked like the second coming of, Martavis, but a freakier athlete. But then it all changed. I didn't like Chase coming out of the draft. I remember on draft night, that was the draft class that I liked. I liked a lot of the wide receivers, and not a lot of those guys actually worked out. So I was wrong on a lot of that class. Claypool, I wasn't necessarily wrong on. Claypool, I think I had like the talent. I think he was like wide receiver 10 or 11. And I only watched like maybe, I think he actually might have been my worst graded wide receiver that year. I didn't watch a ton that year. That was the Minka year. There wasn't, it was hard as a Steeler guy, like watching film that year, because you weren't really sure, which guys are going to fall to the second round, which guys are going to be in the third round. Like first round, it's easy to scout, to watch those guys. Second and third round, who the hell knows where they're going to go? So yeah, am I happy he got traded? Yep. I am sad though. I am sad that I never get to do another Chase Claypool rant. It's like a brand. It's like my own personal brand of just every week. Nah, maybe not. Maybe it's like once a month. Once a month, I get to go on AFC North Talk or Locked On Steelers or here, and I get to just bitch and scream for 5 minutes about how bad Chase Claypool is and how he's a small wide receiver in a big man's body, and then I feel better. It's cathartic. We move on, and I never get to do that again. So in some ways, I'm a little bit sad. Uh-oh. We got, okay, so let's trade Bush for a bag of chips and a Coke. There's no point. Devin Bush will be out of our lives in 9 games. 17th game, 9 games. Then be done with it. No point in trading him. I would like to see more Mark Robinson, although Mark Robinson got a hat for what, like 1 game? And then that was... They didn't even play. I don't even think... He played special teams, like a play or two, right? And then that was it. Noah says the TikTok era is over. Did that really matter, though? I mean, like, the TikTok stuff. I get that, from like this is not Steeler football, stuff my dad would say. I get it. I don't know. That stuff never mattered to me. On the play. The problem with Chase Claypool was not that he went on TikTok and said that the Browns were going to get clapped by the Chiefs. The problem with Chase Claypool is, and I'll do it again, one more rant, this was an interception. That's the problem with Chase Claypool. Nothing to do with TikTok. All right, here we go. Here it is. Donald. Najee is garbage. Slow, no vision, can't pass block. Someone said on AFC North Talk, someone put in a super chat 2 weeks ago on AFC North Talk, and they said, Najee Harris is Trent Richardson reincarnated. And I didn't have a comeback. You know why I didn't have a comeback? Does that hurt, man? Words hurt. Words hurt. I like Najee. I still think he could be a good back in this league. But I've said it since week 1. I just feel like he's not the right guy for this offense. And maybe last year just broke him. Did he really say in his press conference after the game? I didn't get a chance to watch it. Did he really say that, I can't make the holes or something like that? That is his biggest problem, right? Is that he wants to be this, like, Jonathan Taylor 1,500-yard back. Sorry, the Steelers don't have that offense, right? You could maybe be a 4 yards per carry guy, but you got to, at the end of the day, you got to take what they're giving you. Like, he does a very good job when he has to. Obviously, when guys are bearing down on him, does a good job of making guys miss. But that play on third down is very much that play kind of encapsulated all the problems of Najee right now. Najee's a very good, like, guys are bearing down on him. I got to make guys miss. Okay, I can do that. But when it's me versus guy, and there are yards that I can just take. I can just fall into him, and we're going to get the 3 yards, and, we're going to run this dude over, and that's it, right? There's no way for me to get 15 yards right now. I'm not going to get 15 yards, but I can at least get 4. But instead, what does he do? We're going dancing, right? It's a dance party out here on third down. That's the problem with Najee. Just take the yards, man. Just take the yards. The yards are right there. You're looking at them dead in the eye. Take the yards. But he won't do it. And that's where the frustration comes in. He leaves so many yards on the, and that's why, I've never been a big believer in the rushing yard over expectation stat, because I do think it's too highly correlated to quality offensive line play. Like, if you look at the highest graded offensive lines in the league, and then you look at running backs who have the highest rushing yards over expectation, they're almost 1-to-1. That's why I've never really liked that stat. But it is no shock to me that I believe Najee Harris is far and away this year the leader in negative rushing yards over expectation. And I just think, look, Jaylen Warren is a better back right now because he represents what the Steelers need at running back. Just hit the hole and take the yards. He's a one-cut, high burst, high motor, fight through contact type of player. Is he a top 5 guy in the league? No, of course not. Najee Harris was drafted because they felt like he could be a top 5 guy in the league. Jaylen Warren will never be that. But Jaylen Warren is a better back for what the Steelers have offensively right now. Until Najee fixes his, like, I'm incapable of just fall forward and take the yards. All right, we got Donald here with a draft strategy. Let's go draft strategy here. First round, left tackle. Second round, DT. Third round, guard. Don't hate it. First round, left tackle. Easy money. Easy money. We'll go back to the TDN top 100 here. Actually, I'll just put it up on screen. This will be a fun little thing. Being that the Steelers have all this extra draft capital, how should we spend it, baby? Let's go here. What do we got? Let me just pull the tab up. All right. So, first of all, can I interest you all in a unbelievably good edge rusher? Why do I have all these banners up? Golly. Can I interest you all in a premier edge rusher, number 1 overall pick, who probably won't even be the number 1 overall pick? You have to imagine that a quarterback's going number 1 and probably number 2 overall. So really, you probably need to be number 3 to get Will Anderson. The Steelers right now, if they were picking in the draft, they would be, I believe, the number 3 or 4, depending on strength of schedule, right now. Okay. All right. So, but offensive linemen, let's see where they have offensive linemen. So we have Broderick Jones. Oh, I don't know Broderick Jones. I do know Jalen Duncan. Okay. Where's wait, there he is. Skoronski. Here's how I know Skoronski. Have I watched a lot of Northwestern this year? No. But I did watch the opening game between Northwestern and who did they play? Northwestern and Nebraska. Skoronski was amazing in that game. So love that. Love that pick. Now, as far as number 2 pick is a DT. Yeah, I mean, they just drafted Leal. They wanted to give Leal more minutes. So Leal is clearly going to be a starter next year. He'll take over for Wormley. Hayward's not at the end of the line. You're saying draft a DT to be the successor to Cam. I don't hate that. And then in the 3rd round, what was your 3rd round pick? And now I'm forgetting. It was guard. Yeah. 3rd round guard, 3rd round center. 3rd round interior offensive line. We are on the same page. Absolutely. We are on the same page there. No doubt about it. Then I read your next one. Hold up. I'm sorry. Did you say cut? Cut Cam Hayward? Come on now. Let's not get crazy. Like, I know today's an interesting day. We're making moves. Maybe we're making moves, but that's not the one to make. We're not cutting one of the greatest interior defensive linemen the Steelers have ever had. No, I refuse. Like, I get it. Cam's not Cam anymore. He's not dominant. He's just good. But we're not cutting Cam. Trade him? Boy, if you trade him, you're like, here's why you trade him. Because you're like, yeah, we're not winning anytime soon. So we'll get whatever value we can get for him. Like 3rd round pick for Cam, sure. Because Cam's what, like 34 going into next season? How much are you getting for a 34-year-old DT? Like a 3rd round pick? I don't know if I'd do that. Will says, don't we have 2 second-round picks now? Yes, we do. We have our own, and we have the Bears. Not the Ravens. That was a key part of this deal. Key Omar Khan part of this deal. It did not take the Ravens pick in the 2nd round. He took the Bears pick. Love it. Great job, Omar Khan. The Bears pick is probably going to end up being a top 10-ish pick. The Steelers pick will be probably, I'll be generous and say it's probably also going to be top 10-ish, top 5 really. So yeah, you're talking about, as I said before, you're talking about 2 picks in the top 45 of this draft. 3 picks in the top 45 of the 23 draft. Bears fan in chat says, is Claypool really going to play well with Justin? All right, let's get rid of this with Justin part. I have no idea. Maybe Justin Fields brings out the dog in him. Here's what you're getting in Chase Claypool. And I'll be honest with you, I am known as a Chase Claypool hater. So you should know that about me before I give this answer. But here's what you're getting in Chase Claypool. You are getting a little man in a big man's body. You are getting someone who has no fight in him. You talk about 50-50 ball? Nope. It's about 20-80 for the defender. If you're going to play him as an outside receiver, he's good with the ball in his hands. Like I don't dislike him, as far as like the end arounds that he runs and that kind of thing. As an open field guy, he's good at that. But as far as his ability to high point the football and to moss defenders like you want your outside receivers to do, someone of his size and stature, you want him to be a dominant red zone threat. Never been that. No, and it's I mean, he immediately lost his place out to George Pickens for those reasons. So look, I wish Claypool the best. I hope he turns into the kind of player he was drafted to be. He was never going to be that in Pittsburgh, but I don't like the player. No. He's exactly the kind of player I really dislike the most because he has so much of the physical tools, but he He does not have the mindset of a player to be of a great player. Great one. Is William Jackson III any good? I heard he fell off a cliff in DC. Yeah, he's had some really rough years out there. Now, the whole word out there is like he just didn't fit the scheme. They want to be a very zone heavy scheme. He didn't fit there. The Steelers run a lot of more man concepts. I mean, just kind of generically speaking, the Steelers are more of a cover 3 type of team, which is essentially a single high type of deal. So you have more man-ish concepts, even if it is pattern match. It's like a pattern match zone, which ends up being man in a lot of cases. So you feel like Jackson will be better in that kind of a scheme. And by the way, let's be real clear, right? The Steelers aren't just taking a flyer on some random guy. They're taking a guy that they had coveted all the way back. I mean, this is someone who they know a lot about because they did a ton of scouting of this kid when he came out of college. I don't know why I'm calling him a kid. He's 30 years old, but yeah, like he didn't play well in DC. But I don't think the Steelers are letting his play in DC deter them from the idea of like we know who William Jackson is, we know his strengths, we know his weaknesses, and we know how we're going to fit him into the scheme we're running right now. That's why I think, remember they gave up nothing for this. They pick swapped a 6th and a 7th round pick 3 years from now, 2025 draft, not the 23 draft, not the 24 draft, the 2025 draft. And they're going to pay him like $2.5–3 million this year, unless the Commanders are eating cap, which I haven't read. We got Bears fan. We got Claypool bear down. Good luck. Good luck. Let's see. Kenny played 4 games against the best defense in the league. You can't possibly say he should have played lights out. No, I'm not saying he should have played lights out. No, it's that's what I said. This is the whole point. Like, they put him up against 4 of the best defense in the league, and he looked like a rookie would look in those spots. Yeah, I mean, you come out of this, you're like, I don't know what I expected, right? It's the old, to do another Arrested Development meme, right? I'm Jason Bateman. I don't know what I expected watching him go up. But look, the problem for Kenny Pickett, this is what Cowher said. You're killing this kid's confidence. Like, you are teaching him all the bad habits. Because at the end of the day, he's gotten worse week in and week out. I mean, every game is like a little worse, a little worse, a little worse. And we can pick and choose and say, well, but this play or this series was good. But the play in its totality is not getting better. It's getting worse. And you're starting to see Kenny kind of fall back to some of the bad habits he had at Pitt. Namely, he loves to do this thing where he's going to bail out of clean pockets. And especially he's going to bail out of clean pockets going horizontally and never vertically. And so that cuts off half the field for him. Look, again, I'm not sitting here saying like Kenny's a bust and they got to get rid of him right now. Like Kenny's a trash player. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But let's call a spade a spade. Kenny hasn't played well. Like, yeah, I will agree with you that Kenny Pickett has been put in as bad a situation as you can be put in. A team without a running game, no running game whatsoever. An offense that is designed like a high school team, okay? And an offensive line that is at best, it's like not good, but it's fine, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Kenny Pickett's been put in a bad situation. But let's not sit here today and go, but nothing, Kenny's great. Like, I think Kenny can be a franchise guy. Like, nothing you've seen out of Kenny right now makes you believe he's a franchise guy. I'll agree with you to say, hey, you can't grade him yet because it's 4 tough games, sure. But like Cowher said after the game, the problem is you are teaching this kid all these bad habits by putting him in this situation, putting him in an offense where he's the only thing that's going to move the football. Kenny, it is on you to move this football. We're not scheming guys open, okay? We're not giving you easy stuff. We're in fact, we're kind of scheming up ways to design 3rd and 6 for you. I mean, it goes back to the play that kind of my head exploded was when they ran the friggin' flip play on 2nd and 7 and basically told Kenny, guess what? You got another 3rd down you got to convert. You know the easiest way to stay out to convert on money downs? Don't get in money downs. Get a 1st down on 2nd down. It's the thing that drives me nuts about this offense. And so, yeah, Kenny Pickett got put in a horrific situation. But let's not act like he's going to be better for that at the end of the day. And that was Cowher's point in the postgame. Well, I went on that rant. Apologies. Let's see. Lauren says Claypool is going to play very well now that Coach T is no longer his head coach. Okay. How have former I hope you're first of all, I hope Lawrence is a Bears fan. Because I just want to ask him. The Bears have taken a former Steeler, like a cast-off Steeler at wide receiver. How'd Marcus Wheaton work out for you? Marcus Wheaton do well over there? Okay. Yeah, I mean, like former Steeler wide receivers who go out and do great things. I can think of one. His name is Emmanuel Sanders. Are there others that I'm forgetting? AB's post Steeler career? He was like the fourth receiver on the Bucs team that won the Super Bowl that year. Cool. Otherwise, like, that was a disaster. Martavis did literally nothing. I mean, that was kind of. Andy says if the pick is top 3, get a QB possibly. I mean, you got to figure it out, right? I mean, again, let's not look. The idea here is the Steelers should leave open the possibility of getting a quarterback next year. That's why they have to figure out this Kenny thing. It's the argument that you would make of why they should fire Canada, because you're not going to change the scheme, but you could potentially change the coaching. Right? You could potentially change how the scheme operates with Mike Sullivan. And just try to get the best you can out of Kenny to figure out, okay, let's just try to get a sense of, as Tomlin loves to say, right? Is it arrow pointing up for him after 1 year? Because if it's not, okay, well, you get top 3, like, Will says the Steelers need a stud offensive lineman. They'll have a chance to get it. They'll have a chance to get it for sure. Whether that's, and again, they'll have a chance to get, you can get a starting caliber offensive lineman, not just, you don't need a top 10 pick to get that. Now, the Steelers are probably going to have a top 10 pick. And, okay, so, they'll have the opportunity to get potentially the number 1 tackle in this class. They don't need to get a number 1 tackle. That could be one of the 2 second-round picks now. Could be that starting caliber, quote-unquote stud offensive lineman. That's why this pick is awesome. I mean, they potentially traded away their 3rd wide receiver, who probably had no real future on this team, for a pick that could land them a starting corner, a starting guard, a starting tackle, starting D lineman, starting linebacker. There's so many possibilities for those second-round picks. You have 3 picks in the top 45. Even if in the worst case scenario where you do realize, like, crap, we gotta move on from Kenny, you still have now have 2 second-round picks. You can go quarterback first round, then O-line, D-line, O-line corner, linebacker corner, linebacker O-line. And these are all top 45 players in the draft. Awesome. This is it's a great day. I mean, in a complete shit season for the Steelers, today's a good day. And the Bengals got whacked last night. Still Cold says, is Najee not a very good player? He's got a little, it's just, give him credit for this, Okay, so after that 3rd down play, he did run for like 8 yards to carry after that. I mean, that lit a fire under him. That did light a fire. That play kind of lit a fire under him. And, he had like an 18-yarder after that. And I think he had a 10-yarder, whatever. He averaged, and he ended up the game averaging 4 yards to carry when he started the game with 4 carries, -1 yards. So, USMC Young Gun says, I saw a report that the 2nd-round pick is the one the Bears got from the Ravens. Please don't. No. I've read the opposite of that. So I'm going to double check now. I've read that it was the Bears pick, not the Ravens pick. If it's the Ravens pick, I mean, I still like the trade, but that's way worse. It's far worse. Let's confirm this. Because that would be not good. Claypool. They got the Bears 2nd-round pick. No, they got the Bears 2nd-round pick. All right, we're at 1:15. Might have to call it here soon. Great one here says, Tony, who do you follow for college football? I mean, I wouldn't say I have like, I didn't go to college, so I don't have a favorite team. Like I should say I don't have an alma mater. So I just kind of, I'm in and out. I'm in Orlando. I actually really wanted, what game I wanted to attend this year was Tennessee, Georgia. Looked up tickets to that one. Nope, not going to be going to that one. I am a fan of college football. Back to front. I like the idea of how different, because there's 120 teams in Division 1A. So, or in Division 1. I just like the idea that you can be watching a MAC game between two teams who are just trying to get to 6 wins so they can be bowl eligible, right? And then at the same token, and then that's like a fun game of football. And then you can also have like 2 elite teams like Texas and Georgia who are about to play, or Bama and LSU who are going to play on Saturday night, right? Like that's what's cool about it. Like I get as much enjoyment out of watching, whatever the MACtion games are going to be tomorrow, Western Kentucky versus Northern Illinois, and the fun like shootout that'll probably be, versus the absolute, just the marquee matchup of Tennessee and Georgia. Do you think they can make a play for Javon Hargrave this offseason? Yeah. Especially that they got Ogunjobi and they started using Ogunjobi in the right way. Like, Hargrave is a better version of Ogunjobi. Bring him back. Omar, get the boombox, go outside Javon Hargrave's window and get that man back in Pittsburgh. Let's go. Great one says I get an inside linebacker in the second. Yeah. Second, third round pick for an inside linebacker to pair alongside Miles Jack for a little bit. All right. I think we're going to call it here. I'm looking for other stuff that's kind of, it would be an interesting topic to talk about. They said Pat McAfee was kind of mocking the Claypool trade. Yeah. I mean, it's not a good trade for the Bears. It's just not. It's just not a good trade. Did I see the left tackle prospect from Penn State that's 19 years old? I'm guessing he's not in this upcoming class, right? I have not seen this kid. The one kid that I did see this week is, I think he's a sophomore, a true sophomore from Ohio State, who the linebacker who had, he had like 3 pick sixes in the game. Incredible. And just an incredible athlete. He's a linebacker who played wide receiver in 7-on-7 because he's just a freak athlete. I haven't seen, I'm going to look this kid up, though. The Penn State left tackle that's 19. Again, I'm assuming that he's not in this class, right? This is going to be a kid in the 24 class. The 24 class is going to be really cool. The 24 class of quarterback is going to be potentially better than the 23 class, because I don't like Will Levis a whole lot. And then you have like this, there was thought to be this kind of second half of the quarterback class of 23 that could be interesting, like the Anthony Richardsons of the world. That didn't really pan out. Now, Hendon Hooker ended up being good. But the 24 class is going to end up having Quinn Ewers and Drake May and Caleb Williams. You can make an argument that class will end up being even better, because I like all 3 of those guys. I mean, and Quinn Ewers is someone who, look, I understand that Texas is Texas, and Quinn Ewers looked awful against was it Iowa State? But I still think the tools that kid has is special. And as you watch him develop over another year, he'll end up being a top pick. Oh boy. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. That is like it though. I'll give him a look. Michael Jackson says, how do we find the right offensive coordinator? I mean, I think first you have to decide. I think first Mike Tomlin has to decide, what do I want to be offensively? Do I want to be the kind of offense that aspires to 30 points a game, the killer bee stuff, right? Like we aspire to be a top offense in this league. Or do we aspire to be a safe offense that just not going to screw it up for our defense? That, I think, is the first question that Mike Tomlin needs to ask himself this offseason before he lets go of Matt Canada and goes to find the next guy. What do I want? out of an offense in this league? Because the answer to that question for the last couple years is fairly obvious, right? A lot of Bears fans here today. I mean, good. This is. By the way, I'll just put this up because this is all Bears fans in chat today. I mean, guys, I wish the best for Chase Claypool out there. I hope he turns it around. He certainly has all the physical tools that you would want from a receiver. But if you're expecting that the player you just got is going to be a, Mapletron, he's Calvin Johnson reincarnate. It's just not what you got. You got a guy who is a big receiver who plays, he's 6'4", but he might as well be 5'7" for how he plays the position. Okay, so we have a Will Levis fan in chat. No Will Levis slander from me. I'll just say this. I watched Will Levis against Tennessee. Not a fan. Levis hasn't. Yeah, Levis is all quarterbacks are better when they have an offensive line, and I will agree with you that Levis is he does not have the surrounding cast because he had Wan'Dale Robinson last year as well. They're saying this Penn State kid is eligible this year. Well, now I'm intrigued. Oh, and Amos does say an interesting thing here. How about this? How would you feel about this? Because Jordan Addison is likely going to be the first wide receiver taken, we think. I mean, a lot can change between now and draft day. But I think Jordan Addison is a top 10 player, let's say. So let's say the Steelers end up with like the 8th pick in the draft. You could have, let's say the 8th pick in the draft means you can no longer have Will Anderson. Will Anderson's off the table. All 3 quarterbacks are off the table. So that's 4 picks. Where are we with taking Jordan Addison? I don't think I would like it. And for a couple of reasons. One, because that probably means you're moving Deontay to the slot, and he's already got enough drop problems. I don't love that. You have Pickens as you have Pickens as an outside receiver. You're not replacing that. Addison is an amazing talent. I'm starting to convince myself to think like, all right, well, don't let the fact that you have Deontay cloud the idea of getting Jordan Addison and pairing with Pickens, because where is it? Vargas says here, let's get Addison, recreate Joe Burrow, Jamar. It's not just recreating Burrow and Jamar. It's recreating Burrow, Jamar, and Higgins. Right? It's the idea that you're gonna you're just gonna you're gonna give the double middle finger to defenses and say like, stop this. Now, hopefully, you get an offensive coordinator that can design around cover 2, but yeah, a lot of people are saying O-line first. And this is saying I like Addison, and an OT with a trade back if possible. Yeah. It does feel like if the Steelers don't end up top 5, if they end up top 5, they're not, and they don't take a quarterback. I think Will Anderson is a real play there because of how Tomlin wants to build the team. Defense first, defense minded. And he's also a very results oriented. He's a very results oriented thinker. It's why, it goes back to the idea of like, he has to keep 3 quarterbacks and 3 quality quarterbacks because he can never have the duck thing happen again. Can never have the duck thing happen again. So now I have to keep 3, even though it's a stupid thing because like that's never going to happen again. I think the fact that TJ's out for half the year, that leads him to 2-6, puts him in a place where he can actually think to himself, no, I have to get another edge rusher because I can't let the TJ thing happen again. Can't just be relying on like, if TJ goes down, my whole pass rush is screwed. And so it's a way to get Will Anderson. I think if they're top 5, I think Will Anderson is definitely in play. But I think if it's top 10-ish, that's where I think O-line is. I think O-line would be top dog. If you don't get Will Anderson, then I think, a Jalen Carter, a Miles Murphy, those kind of players, like, interior as a top 5 is a tough. It's a tough sell for me, even for a player as good as Jalen Carter is. an interior line or an interior defensive lineman. Number 2 edge rusher, especially a guy of Myles Murphy's caliber. Sure. But then that's where I start thinking, okay, it's O-line. That's where I think it's O-line. And then trade down. The Steelers almost never trade down. But again, it's Omar Khan. Like, the Steelers almost never trade players mid-season, especially trading away players mid-season. Here we are. It's a new day. It's a new, totally new regime as far as the front office goes. Right? I mean, we can't base our expectations of what this team is going to do based on what we've seen for the past 20 years from Kevin Colbert, because Omar Khan has told us pretty clearly now, I don't do things the same way as the old regime. I mean, this guy did a couple things this year that you would have never seen Kevin Colbert do. First of all, he just randomly signed Minkah Fitzpatrick without any sort of deadline in place or anything. Just we're going to get Minkah done. We're going to get, and that happened very, very early. Generally, like the Cam deal, the TJ deal, these things happened very late in the process. He got rid of the entire edge rusher room outside of the starters at the end of camp. I mean, that was another one of those whoa deals. Kept around, is it going to be Tuska? Is it going to be Hamilcar Rashed? It's going to be none of those guys. I'm getting rid of the whole friggin' room. They all suck. We're bringing in new edge rushers. And he was right. He was right in the idea, even if the execution of Malik Reed ends up not being a great third edge rusher and all of that. The idea of it was, hey, we need to go out there and improve this position. And clearly you did. So, trading back in next year's draft, definite possibility. All right, Devin here. I think this will be our last question. Devin says, Boykin is wide receiver 3? No. I mean, I think if you're talking about who's the third receiver in a 3-receiver set, it's either going to be Steven Sims or Gunnar Olszewski. Now, could I see there be cases where Boykin is out there instead of Pickens on a 2 wide receiver set or potentially in a 3 wide receiver set? Sure. I mean, I think Boykin gets more reps. Boykin's a winner today. As far as Boykin's going to get more first-team reps, Boykin's not the third receiver on this team. The third receiver on this team right now is probably Steven Sims, outside possibility Gunnar Olszewski. All right, that will do it for me today. Thank you all for watching and listening. 159 people watching today. Very much appreciate everybody. If you can leave a like on the video on your way out, I would appreciate that. Also, if you enjoyed today's show and want more of it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell as well. You'll be notified when I go live. I try to do this show twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on YouTube, and I'll be back Thursday with more Steeler Country.